state, if you're low income, if you want to add additional applications, you can, and they're I think $75 a piece. Some parents are like, apply to all of them. Just apply to all of them. It's a waste of money. You should really if you have grades high enough that you're going to be able to get into, like Davis is taking like 50% of the people now. So if you have grades high enough to get there and you look at the grade point average, acceptances and those things, and you're within that range or you're close to it, then don't spend $75 to apply to UC Merced. Do you understand what I'm saying? And also, if you have grades that are in no way going to get you to UC Berkeley or UCLA, don't pay the $75 to apply to schools that you have no chance of getting into. We call these Hail Mary passes. One of the reasons why Harvard is so competitive and is always stays really high on the USA World News Report is because everybody's parents, there's tons of parents all over, like, just apply, I'll pay for it, just apply. Even if you have no business applying. So they get hundreds of thousands of applications that they never even read. We always call this that's a lot of money just to take in to never read, because there's a basic cutoff, right? They're not gonna, if you have like a B- average, they're not gonna read your application to Harvard. There's gonna be an initial grade cut, and they're gonna just not ever see it. So you're just basically giving Harvard, $80. So have critical thought. I think if I had one thing that I was trying to get across to everybody here is have critical thought. These are big decisions, and there are a lot of things that are at play here. So think critically. Don't make huge future decisions based on rumor or based on things that don't matter. Don't make a decision to go to school based on weather or the beach or food or I don't know, you don't like, some kid told me I don't like hot dogs, so I'm not going to apply to any schools in New York. And it's just like, first of all, you know what my first thought was when the kid seriously said, I don't like hot dogs and pizza, so I'm not going to apply to schools in New York? Do you know what my initial first thought was? Well, you know me by now. What would my initial first thought be? Not this kid. This kid's not going anywhere. This is not a level of maturity or intellectual curiosity or critical thinking that is going to be conducive to doing well in any school that I represent. Because why is the statement dumb? How about this? Vivian, take a step. Why is the statement, I don't want to go to school in New York because I don't like pizza and hot dogs, not a, if you were to look at it critically, what would you think?
They're kind of ignoring all the other
You have to talk louder because you have to talk louder.
They're kind of ignoring all the other important things, and they're just looking at what they don't like right now, and it feels very closed-minded.
Yeah, I mean obviously you don't give up on a giant collegiate experience that's fully funded at one of the greatest institutions in the nation because you don't like hot dogs and pizza. But more than that, just like on a very practical level, did that kid really seriously think that they only have hot dogs and pizza in the entire state of New York? Like that he couldn't eat something else? No, it's like, okay, this kid, maybe not this kid. And again, like I said before, it's a competition, right? So you interview that kid and you're like, okay. And then the next kid comes in and is like, I can't wait to go to this school because I want to study under this professor. And does this class really exist? And wait, can I go to this place abroad or this place? And oh, wait a minute, I read this thing and it said that he was an undergrad when he did it. Can I do it as an undergrad? And oh my God, and I'm going to be in New York. Can I really get on the subway and go anywhere I want? Have you ever eaten a knish? I've never eaten a knish. Have you eaten a knish? You only get those in New York. And like, okay, like it's like night and day. So when you're talking to people, realize that the people who have had more critical thought and done more research and make better decisions are going to be an advantage to you. Okay. There's going to be, if you're applying to private schools, this is an absolute must. And also, if you're applying to any outside scholarships other than the FAFSA, which all of you will have to ask people for letters of recommendation. Earlier I detailed out like who to ask and how to ask for letters of recommendation. Now that the Common App is open, you can start your account. And when you start your account, it's going to have these spots for where you put in the contact information of your recommenders. Please do not put in your recommenders' contact information if you have not asked them for a letter of recommendation. It's really, really awkward as a teacher. This happens every year where it'll happen today. Where a bunch of, I'll go to my email and there'll be like a bunch of letter of recommendation requests from people. And I don't necessarily want to recommend all of them. So I will have to have very awkward conversations with some of them. However, I'm also really excited because there are people who ask me at the end of the school year in May and June, and if they could do it, and they've been sending me stuff over the summer, and I know exactly where they're applying, and I have a copy of their personal essay and a cover letter that has all their stuff, and so I'm excited about that, right? They followed all the steps, and I feel really comfortable and really excited to write for them, and I will write a really good letter of recommendation. Last year, I got a request from a kid. I couldn't even remember who the kid was. Like and then I went to like LinkedIn to see if I could remember who the kid was. The kid wasn't on LinkedIn. And I went to Instagram looking. To this day, I don't know who the kid is. He never called me. He never asked me. And then when I didn't do it, and he never said anything. So he must have figured out some other way of doing it. Maybe it was a mistake. Because I even asked like my assistant, and my assistant. I was like, who's that person? I was like, I don't know, but I'm one of their recommenders for college, and they're like, oh no. So don't be that person. Start now. Use the guidelines I gave you for selecting a recommender, and then they will then send you one of these. This is Jackie's from Lowell. So you'll see I said basically everything. You need to ask at least 4 weeks prior to your earliest deadline. Beware the early decision or early action decision versus regular decision, and early decision or early action versus regular decision, right? So you want to figure out which ones you're going to go. It is always most favorable, I will stress again, to go out early decision binding. So if you know where you want to go, and if you got the money, you would go. Do that. Also, makes your life much nicer. So I have 5 children, and all 5 of my kids went to college early decision binding. So that meant that we got the most amount of financial aid, and they knew where they wanted to go, and when they applied early, then that means that they knew where they were going to college in like late November, early December. So when everybody else was like, that's when everybody else is finishing their applications, and then those people have to wait until March to get their decisions. My kids were basically, they were done, and they knew where they were going, so they had a certain amount of freedom and ability to actually enjoy their senior year and enjoy their siblings and me as their parent. So we had a pretty chill. Everybody always like said was it so stressful because, I don't know, because I have so many children. And no, my kids, by the way, I did none of this with my kids because they were sitting in these classrooms, or whether they were hanging around, or they went to good schools, and so they did it on their own. And only one has the same last name as me, and only one, because I have kids who have kind of a strong sense of justice, I guess. They wanted to see whether or not they could get in on their own without anybody knowing that they were connected to me, because I've worked with admissions departments over the years. So they applied under their government names, so that they knew that everything was set. And I think that felt pretty good to them. So, although it is a little awkward when you go the first day, like I would go and Mia's or Nancy their first day. You go to college and you move them into the dorm and everything, and they're wishing people around, and they're like, "Oh, Sally, what are you doing here?" And I'd be like, "Oh, that's my kid." And they're like, "Wait, what?" Like, yeah. So the reason why I bring this up is that there is a moment where you can decide, right? People are like, "Oh, I don't know, right?" this is the time to figure out where you want to go and have a first choice school and to figure it out, because I don't know puts you in line for not having a more difficult time getting into your dream school and getting the most money for it. The kids who decide early on will get the most money and get into their more rich schools. In some schools, it's a difference between it being like, I don't know, 11% admission, 10% admission, and like 24% admission. So like more than double your chance of getting in if you do an early decision right? Mostly because it's a pre-selected group of people, right? That's who admissions people want. We want the people who really want to go there, are competitive, know enough about us, and are like, yeah, dang, if I get in, I'm going. So it's beneficial to both parties. Now, for those of you who are not applying to private schools, why do you need letters of recommendation? Independent scholarships, like there's like so many in San Francisco that have to do with being Chinese, or being the children of restaurant workers, or being children of people who work at Chinese hospital, or being related to somebody who works at UCSF. There's just there's so many scholarships, but they all require letters of recommendation. So even if you're not applying to private school, you will most likely still need them. For colleges, again, you need 2 academic. You can have 1/3 other, which if you want me to be, you can ask me and we'll talk about it, or somebody else. Academic should be 1 STEM and 1 humanities if you can. Things like choir, don't count band. You don't put your band teacher. It has to be an academic subject. And then for letters of recommendation for scholarships, you really want both an academic person and then somebody who reflects your community service or your after schoolness, or can speak to your character, right? So again, the same way, remember I showed you how you look things up so you know what they're looking for, right? You see who won it last year, you put all their names into LinkedIn, and then you figure out what all of them had, and then you know what they were looking for. By the way, I was doing this morning for another kid. It took me like 8 minutes. I timed it just because I know I was doing this lecture today. It took me 8 minutes to find 5 central points that I could now be sure that the admissions committee was looking for on a high scale scholarship for graduate school, just by the virtue of the fact that I did a comparative analysis of 2 years of awardees, going to their LinkedIn and seeing what all of them had on their resumes. So doing a little bit of also, you feel very sneaky. It feels very I don't know. Feels very like you know, in movies where the tech expert discovers something. That's what it feels like. So you can do this with all scholarships. So like this year, Waylon, did you apply to 10,000 Degrees of scholarship? Okay, so 10,000 Degrees. Everybody should write this down. 10,000 Degree scholarships exist in the San Francisco Bay Area. They are terrific because they're only in the San Francisco Bay Area, and they're renewable scholarships. The average grant is $4,000. So, really quick, Wilson, if I have a renewable scholarship for 4 years for $3,000, how much is that scholarship really for? You're doing math. If it's a yeah, that's why I asked you. The renewable scholarship for $3,000, and it's renewable for 4 years. So how much is that actually? If you win, how much is it? Yes, $12,000. Okay, and then remember I said, what is the average amount of money a low-income kid has to pay? Because all schools want kids to have skin in the game and pay at least a little something. What was the average cost of that? Does anybody remember? Exactly. So if you get the 10,000 Degree scholarship, what does it do? It makes college free. 10,000 Degree scholarships are they have a application. Lucky for you, I do not allow anybody to write UC essays that are not applicable for other things. So if you use your academic interest and you use usually your significant challenge or your community service essay, it will slide right into the essays required for 10,000 Degrees, and you can apply. It is, as long as you are fully enrolled and you get more than a C average for 10,000 Degrees, it will renew automatically every year. If your family makes more money, they will obviously give you less. If your parents make less money, they will give you more. It is renewable up to 5 years. And, by the way, this is nice about this spicy one, is it also works for summer classes. So if you go to a UC and your classes are impacted or you're forced to take summer classes, but you also want to work, okay, so the way City College works in San Francisco, right, you only get classes for free if you take a certain number. I think you have to take 2 or 3 in order to get for your classes to be free. So a lot of people end up taking more classes just so they don't have to pay for it. Okay, but here's the problem with that. Remember I told you that other colleges are not impacted and they don't have action rules. So in other words, if biology has too many students in it, they just hire another professor and they open up more biology. They just don't say, oh, you can't take biology this year, right? Because they can do that because they're a private university. So what happens is people have to take summer classes. But if you're competing with the private school kids that don't have to take summer school classes, that means that frees up all that time in the summer for them to get competitive internships and build resumes, right? So if you are having to make up extra classes at UC and you can't get a full-time paid internship, your resume is lesser and you also have to take more classes. So if you get a renewable scholarship like 10,000 degrees, right, that pays for summer school classes. So even if you're only going to take one, which you would have to pay for, maybe you have to pay $1,000 for it, right? Then you have the money to pay for that, and you have the time to build your resume so you can continue to get a full-time job. You don't have to take an extra class that you really don't need just to get the free community college class. You see how it worked? Fancy. Okay, so 10,000 degrees is a really good scholarship. They also have mentors, success mentors that will see you through all 4 years, and so if you have issues and stuff, they can get you stuff. They also have supplies and emergency funds. So if you go to a college and you're like, oh, hey, my mom's sick and I need to come home, if you're a 10,000 degree fellow, you can call them and they have some emergency funds that they can play. Okay. Also, if you're queer and trans in this room, the 10,000 degree scholarship is has been run by Kim Mizuka for like 25 years, and she's a kind of a famous queer woman, and so she has a lot of support for queer and trans healthcare that other ones don't. Okay. So once you get this. So when you go to your high school, you ask for a letter of recommendation. The teachers will send you this. You have to fill it all out. Oh, make sure that you have voicemail on your phones, because old people, meaning me, leave phone messages, right? If I have a question, I'm going to call you. And if you put your number down, that's why your phone number is here, and I call you and you don't have voicemail, I don't have. Okay. Here's a question here too. He's answered this wrong. So you're the first in your family to attend college. He should say yes, and then he should say he's a first generation college student. And because despite the fact that Tracy went to college, both of his parents did not, and that's really what they're looking for is first gen. This is not a very well written. It should be written differently because they're trying to figure out how to tick the box, and the box on the actual application will be first gen, not first in family. And when he put no, he put himself in the same running of like, I mean, their parents at Lowell both have PhDs or they're both physicians, you know, and so there would be no way to tell Jackie apart from those people because he answered the question wrong. A list the siblings. The reason why they ask this question is to see if whether or not you could possibly have any other people in college. Caregiver, father, deceased. So some people like don't know what to put as what their parents' job is. Generally, there's on the UC there's like a long list of jobs. If you don't find the exact job, if your parents are hourly, they're paid hourly, and they take care of something else, or they clean up something, or they move stuff, or they whatever, or they're in an unlicensed kind of thing. That's called labor. Okay. So here, caregiver works. That's one of the things. If you have a parent who is deceased, remember, I just want to remind folks that if you have a parent that is deceased, you have to have proof of that, and there's a leaves you. Okay, again, this is coming directly from the Common Application form. Remember I told you that they're going to ask you how the respect accorded by peers and the respect accorded by faculty, right? And they have to rate you on that, and then they have to write in a dialogue box. So Lowell they just translated the little check marks and rating scale of respect accorded by peers, respect accorded by faculty, their ability to work independently, their ability to work in groups, and the ability to work on large-scale projects. And they just shoved it into one question, right? So this one is your answer should be very much, they're looking for, in this question, they're looking for insight, whether or not you see yourself clearly. All right, so there's big controversy around this question. This question is like, everybody's like, oh no, this question. Because, does anyone want to take a stab about where bias could lay in that question? How does the outside community perceive you? Why is that a tricky question? Take a stab. Be brave. Go ahead.
Even if people see you in a bad way, you're not bad.
Okay, that's one thing. What else?
Oh, that's bad. You're like controlling your own application.
Sure. Anybody over here? Where would bias lie? Racial perceptions of women of color. Black women are perceived as being loud and being sassy to a certain extent. Asian women are perceived as being quiet and obedient and are rewarded for being such. Young black men are perceived as dangerous, right? Or perceived as athletic in some way, right? Asian boys are seen as being quiet and math-driven and non-empathetic, having no emotion. So the idea is that the question, right, on a major application that asks how do you think the school and the outside community perceives you, it's a difficult question for BIPOC people to write. It's even more difficult for trans people to write, right? Queer and trans people, if you're a closeted queer or trans person, oh my God, what do you write there? Right? What does the outside community perceive about you? So it's a tricky question. Most commonly, this is the question where Asian kids tank. Why do you think Asian kids tank here? Most often you say, most people think that I'm quiet, or I don't know, I'm not that great, but I try really hard, or I'm always trying to get better, and I'm always struggling because I don't think I'm good enough. Or what is it? I have really bad grades, but I'm really trying, right? And then the kid has like a 3.8 GPA. Or what else do I have? They perceive me as being quiet, and I just hear the word quiet over and over again. So the problem is that we end up looking like we don't see ourselves clearly, that we don't understand our own race stereotypes that could surround us. And also we get killed by the other communities that, particularly the white community who can write, they have no qualms about saying they're the best. You'll see in this question, it's like, oh, my mastery of biology, and you look at their grades, it's a B-, right? You will see the opposite going on. So what happens, particularly Asian American women downplay their accomplishments, they downplay their skills, and they put their accomplishments in a negative light. I could have done better. They have a 3.9 GPA. It means you don't see yourself clearly, and I don't want the person to see. I don't want the person to see themselves clearly. I have a 3.9 GPA. I really loved X, Y, and Z class. I struggled in one class, and this is what I did to improve it. Clarity. I'm not putting a value judgment on it. That's what I am, right? It's like, I should have done, I know I should have done more, but this is what I did. Don't put a negative spin on your own experience. Just tell me what the experience was and what you got out of it. Don't waste time telling me that you're not good enough. However, this is also true, I see in Asian American stuff, in which kids talk about stuff which they didn't really do anything. If I read one more lull, I was a volunteer at UCSF Medical Center, and I was an intern there, and they write about what the intern, basically they sat on an information desk and said that's where the bathroom is and that's where the ER is. I don't want to read another one. That is, I don't want to, that just drives me nuts and it makes me sad. You know what normally makes me sad is usually these kids put an enormous amount of time in there. They went like 3 hours a day, 3 times a week for 2 years. But they never really did anything. And if you took that same amount of time, or even half of that amount of time, and did something that was like you really believed in, and you really had impact in, and you could really measure that impact, that's huge, right? For far less time. So, like, I would rather see somebody doing something that is from their own voice and has their own biography behind it than I just cut and paste that, right? Okay. Upstairs seems much more fun upstairs. Okay, so be careful in that question that you don't knock your own self down. Be careful in that question you're just not listing things you did because somebody told you to do, because it's going to be immediately distinguishable as such. I would rather get something that you did for less time that had more impact and it was interesting than something that you did for a longer period of time and which had no impact and which you have no clear understanding. Okay. 6 adjectives that you and or someone you know as well describes you. This is a question also on the Common App. I'm supposed to give 6 words. No, we're supposed to give 4 words that describe people. I usually ask students to give me 6 and so I can edit. These are Jackie's 6 words. Unprecedented seems cocky. Like, Jackie pretty great, but he's not unprecedented. Unprecedented means like there's never been one and there will never be one again. I mean, unless it's weird. Tropic. I don't think that he even knows what that word means, because if he knew what that word means, he would not have put it in. You do not want to be a function of entropy. Bright. I would do bright. I think he's bright. I like curious a lot. Unimaginable. Unimaginable is up with unprecedented in that in a positive light it reads cocky. In a negative light it's like most times unimaginable is not used in a positive format. Most times unimaginable, it means like, oh, it's like the most common word. What is the most, do you guys know what the most common word that goes after that word is? An unimaginable tragedy. It's usually the paired word with unimaginable. So try not to be unimaginable, because I think, oh my God, is he going to cause a tragedy? Smiley is my favorite. Smiley is my favorite. You know why? I think anybody who ever met Jackie would say that that was true, right? Anybody who'd ever asked Jackie, whatever you want to say about Jackie Law, we do know that he's smiley, and smiley's a great thing. Smiley is empathy. Smiley is an excitement to engage other people. Smiley represents a certain amount of relaxed approach, and also who somebody can find joy. Brown University's admissions officer just released a video in which he talked about what they're looking for. And because the question was like, you don't have scores anymore, and every kid has done so much, and he says, yeah, almost all the applicants are highly credentialed. They have a lot of all the things, right? They have all the grades and they have all the stuff, But what they don't, what enables him, he says, when you go to high school, your days are so scheduled. You start at 7 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night, and sometimes 9 o'clock at night. Everything is scheduled out. You have 7 classes, you have track, you have a job, or you have your extracurricular, you have your community work, and then in every single day, you have 4 classes in a day and all these things. When you get to college, you're in class like 3 hours a day. The rest of your time is spent looking for ideas, sharing ideas, hanging out, and figuring out what you're going to do with your life. So you go from most of these kids go from a highly scheduled, highly compacted experience into one in which there's a great more freedom. And so what the Brown Admissions Guide said is, I'm looking for kids who can find and generate purpose and joy, not just in themselves, but in others. Do these people like to do things? Well, if they have a lot of time, will they watch something and tell others about it? Will they go to our events? Will they show up at a lecture? Will they go to a concert on the lawn? Will they leave campus and go somewhere else and do some project in another school? Will they volunteer somewhere? Will they, I don't know, will they write for the newspaper? All of the things, because there's much more time. So Smiley, oddly, reacts to that. So given what I just told you about the Brown admissions officer and what they're looking for, your 6 adjectives, whatever you put in there, please use words that, like, you don't want to be unmanageable or unprincipled. When you're in the category, think twice. Okay? I didn't even tell Jack he was going to make fun of him the whole day. But he's at Stanford getting ready to give his presentation, and he's going to have a great day today. So I feel okay doing this. So when you're looking at choosing these words, think about what they convey. And not just that you want to tell your recommender how people see you, but also what would you want to tell a roommate? What would you want to tell your study partner? What would you want to tell your teacher? What words really truly describe you? Do not feel tied to making yourself like the second coming, right? You just really tell me who you are, right? What are your educational goals? That's a huge thing. And then you have one line. Thank you, Lowell. I don't even know how one would answer that. But I think in this room, you don't need to say, I am going to become a gastroenterologist, right? Lowell doesn't know. And also, by the way, if you told me you wanted to be a gastroenterologist on your college application, I would want to know why, because that's a very specific thing. And maybe you love gastroenterology. I don't know. Maybe you like gut health. You're into interior biomes. Like I don't know. You're interested in the way gas works. I don't know. Whatever. But here you want to know more about what you want to take, where you want to take it, right? I want to learn at the intersection of business and immigrant and refugee poverty alleviation. I want to learn nursing, but also public health for new immigrant populations. I want to learn more about how computer science and AI can better serve schools and learning. So that's really where you put your intersection, right? With your experience in and out of the classroom, how will you contribute positively to the college? Okay, I will be my intersectionality. Yes, I hope so. I think he's just put notes in here because he was on the phone with me and he asked me questions, and I think he was just typing in here. He was going to figure out what the answer is later. But with your experience in and outside the classroom, how will you contribute positively to the college you attend? That is directly off of the Common Application scoring chart again. They will ask, what is your ability to contribute inside the classroom, outside the classroom, with another person, within groups, and within the greater college community. I have to rate you on a scale of 1 to 5, and then I have to write about you. So this is where you want to talk about exactly if any of you did the academic interest essay for UC. It's sort of transcribed almost perfectly to here. So, but it has that one last step. How are we going to contribute? What is important? So you want to talk about the things that you've done. And then remember I was talking about when you look up like classrooms you want to be, it's like I would love to raise my hand in the urban and ethnic neighborhoods course at Georgetown and bring my point of view on growing up in San Francisco's Chinatown. Or in the public health course on how to post-pandemic solutions in ethnic communities, I would love to bring my voice working on in tenant services or doing education within immigrant communities. That's where this comes from. Okay. Do you feel that your course's grades and test scores accurately represent your academic credential, and why? So you say you want to go through and say if you have some grades that didn't work well, if you had some reason for that. So here are viable reasons for low grades. Viable reasons for low grades. I lost my housing. Somebody died or was dying. A baby was born. Somebody immigrated and moved into my house. I had to move 3 times. Where else are the good reasons? I myself got really sick. These are good reasons for grades dropping, right? So, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. So, in this question, do you feel that your courses and grades and test scores accurately represent your academic potential? This is because they're on the Common App and on all scholarship applications, they're going to ask about your academic potential. This is a really nice question for any of you who dropped grades somewhere, and you can explain why. Now, dropping grades because you just didn't feel it is not an example. However, if you had depression, or you had anxiety, or you had some, there's a reason you had some form of mental illness, which a lot of people had post-pandemically. People got sad and had the inability to focus. One of the main symptoms of depression in young people is the inability to focus, or the inability to feel motivated to do things. You can put that there, but you have to have a diagnosis. You can't just diagnose yourself, right? You have to do that. So it's more helpful in this area to say, I got depression, and I went to my doctor, and I saw a therapist, and I worked on it, and it went great. And as you can see, my grades went up after I got treatment, right? So mental illness, depression, anxiety, any of the big favorites amongst young people and Asian Americans are, if you have a diagnosis of that, you can sort of put in that, and that's a disability, and we will 100% honor it. But if you didn't, it's a little trickier, right? You could maybe make an argument that you didn't have access to it, or I've read once like culturally I was not allowed to seek help, but usually somebody found it through school or another way. But if that's true of you, you can put that down. So know this for the future. If you get to school, you get to college, you've got another 4 years, and you start showing the signs of things, or you starting like you can't turn your head off at night, and you keep having thoughts, and you can't stop thoughts, or you find yourself distracted to the point where you can't focus like you used to, or you have intrusive thoughts, like you're trying to do one thing and then other thoughts just keep entering your mind, or you have cycled thoughts of things happening that are going to be terrible and negative. Or you are having like these really incredibly high highs, and you just can't believe why everyone want to get on your level. These are all things, and they're very kind of classic symbols of science: gaining weight, losing weight, eating, not eating, doing things way too much. Like if you're doing one thing way too much, whatever that thing is, it can be anything. You should think about that. Mental health care on college campuses is really great. It's really free, and it's highly accessible. So use it and go and do that. There is no stigma to that, and also people like, oh, I'll just talk to my friends. Your friends don't have a PhD in psychology. Your friends did not go to school. I mean, you may be good friends, but like Gavin does not have a PhD in psychology and over 1,000 hours of clinical work helping people. You kind of want the person, if you're going to be messing around with your brain, to be like, and giving you advice and helping you get out of something. Gavin may help in the moment, but in terms of long terms of solutions, you kind of want to get a psychologist, right? Okay, so that's my mental health 2 cents. Okay. Also, ADHD, other neurotypical and neuroatypical syndrome. Go and get a diagnosis for that, because then you can get help with that. They can give you extended time in testing. They can give you support services once you get there. They can help you with medication. They can help you with timetables and systems. So don't suffer things on your own, because you don't have to. Okay. Next thing, extracurriculars and accomplishments. Okay, here's the thing. He put like firecracker. Nobody knows what that is. He had a NASA internship and a Stanford internship, and he's a member of Beyond Differences, which are all like nationally selected things. So I'm not sure why they're not here, but maybe he just. Oh, he put them here. Okay, it's just sort of in the wrong place. You just sort of have to figure out what it is, and also like here. This is a selective position. I choose 40 kids from across the nation, and he's one of the 40. So you would want to put like the name of that. So somebody look that up. He's got a lot of stuff here. Like this one is interesting, but the only problem with this is like one of the things I was asked would be like, oh great, how many tours have you given, and what is your favorite type of tour, or when you're giving tours, what is the most common question? I don't know, Tracy, do you know how many tours he's actually given?
He gives half tours.
What?
He gives half of them because he doesn't know all the content yet.
Yeah, see, so I wouldn't really put that, right? And he doesn't have to, because he also has these two things under that thing, right? You want to lead with your other things. Okay, some people would argue, but these other things are 3 months. But I would, yes, that's true. But what he didn't put here is the number of hours it is, right? So that probably he spent more hours in the Stanford 3-month program than he has in, even though he was enrolled for a year in CATS. So you're looking at the number of hours you spent doing it. All right. Here is the supplemental information. Notice that the first question, right? So, lucky you, I've told you to all choose the significant challenge essay. Remember I said there's always 2 essays that we always choose because they work the best for us and we can use them over and over again. It would lay straight in here. You wouldn't have to write another essay. And it would work, your significant challenge essay would work for all your interviews for and scholarships. Okay, so he's got to write about that. What, notice the examples: illness, talent, athletic or academic strength, grade inconsistency, etc. Okay, do you see why that the people in this room, we can just kill it on this thing? Other kids are going to be writing about like athletic strengths or grade inconsistencies, and you all are going to talk about living in SRO and or immigrating here or working in your parents' restaurants, right? Your challenges and perseverances about failures just blow most kids out of the water. So this is your big place, right? If you lived in the Tenderloin, this is your spot, right? Oh yeah, because other kids are writing like, oh, my incredibly tragic life in Pacific Heights, right? You would be amazed at what I read as significant challenges. Remember I told you about the prom dress significant challenge and how I changed my prom dress? I also read a significant challenge of like how I find the right place to board my horse. What other significant challenges are there? Oh, not having enough time in my summer to travel around the world. And then they only tell me about traveling to European countries, which is not around the world. You just went to Europe. That's not the world. That's just white people. What other significant challenges have I read about that I'm like, that's your significant challenge? Life is going to be hard for you. I don't know. Sometimes like my mom is always nagging me is a significant challenge. Oh, let's talk about that. Sometimes people put as a significant challenge having strict Asian parents. I realize that this is a thing. The strict Asian parent, I am probably one. I know you can ask me. I'll give you an example. I was driving here this morning. I called my mother because I called my mother to check in on my mother. By the way, so those of you who are Asian in this room and you think you're going to grow up and you won't have to check in on your mother, or your parents won't call you and ask you to figure things out for you. Never ends. It's going to keep going. I'm 53. I get about 3 calls a day. What's my internet password? Or I got that last night. Or mayor, that's amazing. I love Bill de Blasio, right? Not everybody loves Bill de Blasio, but still, right? Sometimes I get essays here about strict parents or how much I don't like my parents or how my parents never loved me or my parents never said I loved you or my parents never hugged me. Or like, there are a lot of these essays. And yes, I do not want to gaslight and I do not want to say that it would have been nice to have those things. I do not have, if my father turned around to me and said, Sally, I love you so much and I am so very proud of you, I would think that like he thought he was dying or something, right? That would be like, what is wrong? What is up? Are you okay? Right? Do I doubt for a moment that my father loves me or is proud of me? No, I don't. Asian American parents are different in that, not all of us, but we often show our love and affection in action, not in words. So, I may not say I'm very, very proud of you and I want that you're going to become the person in my family too, and our family to go to college, but while you're up late studying one night, I may cut fruit and put it on a plate and put it next to you and walk away. And that is my proud of you, and that is my love you, and it just looks different. What are other ways of doing this? Does anybody in here ever, your parents don't necessarily say things to you, but you'll hear from other people that they're proud of you in some way, you're like, I didn't even know they knew that, and okay. Like an auntie will come to you and say, oh, I heard you did well in AP Bio, good for you, you must have studied hard, and you're like, how did she know that? And then you're like, and you say, how do you know that? And you say, oh, your mom told me. And then you're like, oh, okay. There are things, but is my mom ever going to come up to me and say, you did so well at AP Bio, I'm so proud of you, let's go buy a donut? Never. Okay, so in writing these things, and when you start talking about your parents, it's not wrong to talk about your parents in these places and to talk about the struggle that may be, because yeah, it is nice to have things, to have validations in certain ways, but I'm also looking to the insight in which so you can see it. Okay. So, in terms of this, so your challenge, how you're confident, motivated, and persevered through challenges and failures. Again, the words confident, it is not a value, something is valued amongst Asian Americans. Nobody ever well, at least East Asian, it's not a value to be confident. No parent is really excited about a kid that is confident. That's seen as being cocky, right? So, my brother David was not a great athlete, but he played on a team, and we went to go see one of his games, and he kind of was a part of making a goal. To this day, I'm not sure. He kind of was all him. I'm like, maybe, but he did a goal, and then he ran around the field with his arms in the air and jumping all around. And on the way home from in the car, my parents was like, don't do that. Don't run around the field. It's too much. It's too much ego. It's too much. You're taking too much credit for things. You work on a team and you do that. You're making too much about yourself, right? I don't think any other parent would have probably said that, but we're like super Buddhist and see the glorification of self as being negative, and so we're not supposed to do that. My mother, when I give speeches on stage, and sometimes my mother comes, she always says when I walk off the stage, sometimes when people are clapping, you wave and you say thank you very much, and you walk off the stage. She always wants me to walk past and look at as many people as I can, and acknowledge as many people, and give back grace, because otherwise it was like too much. Don't run around the field, right? So it's more different. If this is the world that you've been raised in, right, and this is the world, it's hard for you to then talk about confidence in an essay. So I would argue there's a certain amount of bias there. Okay. So what is an extracurricular activity or community service that is most meaningful to you? This is exactly, this is just the UC thing. They have to write about that. So you write about that. The most important thing is notice the question is meaningful to you and how did it impact your life? right? So the reason why they have meaningful to you and impact your life is because those are the two questions that catch bullshit. If you just showed up and stood there and just did what you were told, it's not that meaningful to you and it did not impact your life or the lives of others. So that's how we qualify community service. We really don't care what it was. We're looking for that meaningfulness to you and the impact on others. Okay. And then just the last question is, what else would you want me to include in your letter of recommendations? You know, whatever else. Or is there a broader context in which I or colleges should consider your performance and involvement? Some examples of broader context include particularities of family situation, responsibilities, after-school work obligations, sibling, childcare, and other circumstances, either positive or negative. Okay, so this is the only question in this entire letter of recommendation that is meant to include stuff about equity, right? Because here they're saying this because for so long, nobody said anything. You would talk to a kid and he was like, oh, what do you do after school? And they would say nothing. And I was like, you do nothing after school? And they're like, no, I don't do anything. I'm not in any clubs. I don't play any sport. I'm not in band. And then I would be like, so what do you physically do with your hours after school? And they're like, oh, I work and I take care of my little sibling, so I don't do anything. I'm like, no. That's worth way more than being the star of the play. And I will value that. But most kids didn't talk about it, so that's why this question. Okay, so that is the end of the how you fill out this form and what you need to put in there. The more that you write it well, the better it will be because they will cut in place and you will basically write your own letter of recommendation. So those of you who are going to join me after Friday and be with me next week and into the fall because you're going to apply to private private colleges, we will work on this together and we will get those letters of recommendation out, and then we will also start on the supplemental application. Hey Tracy, did you hear back from Pauline about whether or not we can meet in your building?
Jackie's gonna call.
Jackie's gonna call.
Yeah.
Okay. Currently, because we can't be in here, because I realized once you go back to school, you can't be here 9 to 5, right? Because you'll be in school. And I also will be elsewhere. So I'm trying to find a space that we can meet that's central, that we could meet. Do you think we could meet from like 5 to 7? Would that work? Those of you who are doing private, and then we will just do all the private school applications until early decision. And then the rest of you, whatever, and we'll go to school, and then come February, we will come back together and I will do a full day of doing the FAFSA forms and all the applications that you have to do with your parents to apply for financial aid in private scholarships. We'll just get a big room and a bunch of laptops and we'll finish everybody's financial aid. And then the one other time we will meet, if you like, I will rent out a space. And when you get all of your admissions decisions, then we can sit in a room. I can help you weigh out and compare apples to oranges on all your financial aid packages and all the schools you've got into and help you make a decision and commit to that university. So we have today and tomorrow, and then we have FAFSA day, and then we have decision day for those of you who are only applying to UCs. And then if you're applying to private school, we have today and tomorrow. We have next week that I will do online because I have to meet each one of you individually. We will look at each one. I'll spend an hour with each of you looking at the different schools, figuring out what the different supplemental essays are, and putting together a schedule and starting those essays. And then we will also do these letters of rec preparation. And we'll do that for a week. And hopefully I get really, really far and we'll be so happy and we'll just like run around the room. And if not, then we will meet once a week in probably, hey Tracy, what is the percentage of like confidence that you have that we'll be able to meet in your building?
What day do you want?
I don't know. Like, it can be any day. What days can I do it? Thursdays and Fridays are nice.
Good questions. He'll call her.
Or if anybody else can
So-
offer a building in which we could be in, then I will go there. But I'm just trying to find a place to meet. So I I don't know, but Jackie's trying to get the conference room at the bottom of this building. And so if you and I'm trying to get someplace in Chinatown so it's easier for you to get access. Or wait a minute. Do most people, where is the best place to meet? Because I'm doing it in Chinatown just because I'm already here. But is it hard to get here? Or is there a better place to meet? Like, do more people live in Richmond? Okay. Well then, I will just keep it in Chinatown in Jackie's building on Broadway. It's on what? It's on Broadway in Montgomery.
Jackson.
Oh, Broadway in Jackson. Okay. Okay. So that what time is it? Ooh. Oh, perfect. 2:09. So that is my hour. You can ask me questions. If you want any letter recommendations, you should start to look into this. There are a bunch of scholarships that come from the San Francisco Unified School District. What's that one for Chinese Americans, Tracy? Tax. Did you get that? Yeah. So there's a tax scholarship. There's 2 or 3 that exist around. And then Tracy, you're here. Can you explain the one that you got for Cal and how that works?
Mine?
Yeah.
It just comes with your acceptance letter.
Yeah, except for no, there's 2-part, right? You have
get
to
offered an interview with your
yeah,
acceptance
exactly.
letter. Yeah. I don't know how you would be able to say I qualify for this, but
They qualify by being lower than first gen, right?
but I know there are other people who didn't get
Didn't get asked, right?
yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know how they choose.
It's based on what you wrote. So there are remember I said I can't judge you or offer you things based on things that are not written in your application. So there are a huge slew of scholarships that are open to low-income people, to first-gen people, to bilingual people, to immigrant people, to people interested in the arts. There's a bunch of stuff. So you put it in there, and then on the other side, after admissions, your financial aid package is calculated, and then they will look at the people who have highest need, and then they will put them in descending order, and then they will look at what they call institutional scholarships, which is just money outside of FAFSA that schools have to give away, and then they will start ranking candidates on who will get what money. Oftentimes, institutional money is greater than the federal money you will get, and then there are just different levels of scholarships that people can get. Private schools are very much the same way. They're usually named. You can be like I don't know. Who was I? I was a Margaret Sanger Fellow, and I was a Eleanor Roosevelt Rose Fellow, and they you write something, and then they choose you to be a candidate, and then they usually ask you for either an interview or another essay or an essay and an interview or a letter of recommendation. Sometimes you don't do anything but send a letter of recommendation, and then you win or you don't win. But that's how you get the money. But filling out these things, because if you get asked to do these things, they usually say, "Hey, congratulations, Henson, you are among the candidates for whatever. Please send in 2 letters of recommendation to be considered." If you have no 2 letters of recommendation, and then you have to chase people down, and then they have to write it, and then they have to get it in, they're only going to give you about 2 to 3 weeks to get in your paperwork. So it's better to have those letters already, and they give you a portal, and then you just type in the emails of your 2 recommenders, and they'll send out a request letter, and then they just send the letter. Okay, so you don't want to be trying to track. All right, any questions? I'm done with this. I handed back a bunch of essays. I do now have some essays here. This is what it's going to do in these next 2 days. I'm going to try and turn around as many as I have.